Hello, curious minds. Welcome to a new intellectual exploration. Have you ever felt that society is constantly conspiring against your individuality? That the price of fitting in is, more often than not, giving up your own voice? You are not alone in that feeling. Today, we delve into the mind of the man who diagnosed this modern anxiety nearly 2 centuries ago. A thinker who challenged us to trust ourselves with a radical ferocity and to seek the divine not in stone temples, but in the woods. We are talking about Ralph Waldo Emerson, the father of American transcendentalism, a philosopher who didn't just write essays, but ignited a spiritual revolution that still burns beneath the surface of our culture, obsessed with success and image. But how did a former Unitarian pastor from Boston become the prophet of intellectual disobedience? And what does he have to tell us today about authenticity in a world of algorithms and imitation? That is the big question we will answer together. Before we begin, a brief note. To bring this narration to life, I have used artificial intelligence tools to generate the images you see. Think of them as a canvas, a way to illustrate the ideas and the atmosphere of the story we are telling. They won't always be a literal representation, but rather a visual accompaniment to let your imagination soar with me. I truly hope you enjoy it. To understand Emerson, we must travel back to the 19th century, specifically to the New England of 1830. The United States was a young nation, still searching for its cultural identity, separate from the old traditions of Europe. Born in 1803 in Boston, Emerson came from a long line of religious ministers. His destiny seemed written in stone. He was meant to follow in his ancestors' footsteps, climb into the pulpit, and preach established doctrine. And at first he did. He became the pastor of the Second Church of Boston. He was eloquent, respected, and had a stable life. But beneath the surface, a storm was brewing. Emerson felt that institutional religion had become cold, a corpse of empty rituals. Tragedy struck his life early. In 1831, his young wife, Ellen, died of tuberculosis. The grief was devastating. This loss didn't just break his heart, it severed the final ties binding him to religious orthodoxy. Emerson began to question everything. How could an institution offer comfort if its rites felt mechanical? In an act of bravery unheard of for his time, he resigned from his position as pastor. He declared that he could no longer administer communion in good conscience. Imagine what that meant. Giving up his career, his status, and his financial security. Emerson threw himself into the void. He needed to find a truth that didn't depend on ancient holy books or ecclesiastical hierarchies. He needed a living truth. To heal and seek answers, he traveled to Europe. There he met great thinkers like Thomas Carlyle and the Romantic poets. But the most important thing wasn't what he learned from them, but what he discovered about himself. Authority wasn't outside, it was within. He returned to the United States transformed. He settled in Concord, Massachusetts, a town that would soon become the intellectual epicenter of America. There, surrounded by woods and brilliant friends, he began to formulate what we would call transcendentalism. But what exactly is transcendentalism? Don't let the word intimidate you. In essence, it is the belief that fundamental reality is not the matter we touch, but the spirit that resides behind it and within us. It is a philosophy of intuition. For Emerson and his peers, every individual has direct access to the divine. You don't need a priest, a middleman, or a Bible to speak with God or the universe. That connection is already installed in your own soul. You only need to know how to listen to it. This was radical. Telling people in the 19th century that their own intuitions were more sacred than the laws of church or state was borderline heresy. Emerson was placing the individual at the center of the moral universe. In 1836, he published his first book, an essay titled simply Nature. This small book was the clarion call of the movement. In it, Emerson proposes that nature is not just dead matter to be exploited. To him, nature is the language of the spiritual. It is the visible symbol of God. When we enter the woods, we are not escaping reality. We are returning to it. We shed the artificial layers of society. There is a famous passage in this essay where Emerson describes a mystical experience. He says that, standing on the bare ground, bathed by the blithe air, his mean egotism vanishes. He becomes, in his words, a transparent eyeball. I am nothing. I see all, he writes. The currents of the universal being circulate through me. I am part or particle of God. This image of the transparent eyeball is crucial. It means we stop being an obstacle and become a channel of pure perception. Think about it for a moment. In our daily lives, we are opaque. We are full of worries, ambitions, and fears. We block the light. Emerson invites us to become transparent, to let the beauty of the universe pass through us without resistance. This connection with nature isn't just aesthetic, it is moral. Emerson believed that nature teaches us lessons. The patience of the tree, the cycle of the seasons, the fluidity of water. Everything outside is a mirror of something we carry within. But Emerson's philosophy didn't stay only in the woods. His most potent idea, and perhaps the most necessary one today, is the one he developed in his essay, Self-Reliance. This is his definitive manifesto. The central thesis is brutally simple and difficult to execute. You must trust yourself. Emerson argues that society is a joint stock company in conspiracy against the manhood of every one of its members. Society loves names and customs, but hates reality. He writes a phrase that should be remembered by every creator. Imitation is self-extinguishment. When you imitate another, you suppress your own essence. Accepting yourself as you are with your virtues and flaws is the first step toward greatness. Emerson observed that we envy geniuses like Moses, Plato, or Milton. But why are they geniuses? Because they spoke what they thought, not what other men thought. Genius is nothing more than believing that what is true for you in your private heart is true for all men. Often we dismiss our own thoughts simply because they are ours. And then we see those same thoughts as expressed by a famous writer and say, wow, that is exactly what I felt. Emerson tells us to value that original intuition before we lose it. Another great obstacle to self-reliance is consistency. We are afraid to change our minds because we don't want to be called hypocrites. Emerson attacks this with one of his most quoted and often misunderstood lines. He says that a foolish consistency is the hobgoblin of little minds. If today you think one thing, and tomorrow the evidence shows you another, speak it with the same force, even if it contradicts everything you said yesterday. Don't be a slave to your past. To be great is to be misunderstood, he claims. Pythagoras, Socrates, Jesus, Luther, Copernicus, Galileo, Newton, all were misunderstood in their time. If you seek the constant approval of your neighbors, you will never do anything worthwhile. Now, this self-reliance is not a narcissistic selfishness. Emerson isn't telling us to be arrogant. He is telling us to listen to that inner voice he calls the over-soul. It is a universal connection we all share. When you trust your deepest intuition, paradoxically, you connect with everyone else because at the core, human truth is one. By being more yourself, you become more universal. That is the magic of Emerson's thought. His influence was magnetic. In Concord, he surrounded himself with brilliant minds. Henry David Thoreau, who built his cabin at Walden Pond, was his disciple and friend. Thoreau put Emerson's theory into practice, living deliberately in nature. There was also Margaret Fuller, one of the first American feminists and a formidable intellectual. Together they edited the magazine The Dial, spreading these transcendentalist ideas that advocated for social reform, education, and art. Emerson was no recluse. He traveled giving lectures all over the country. He was the public intellectual of his era. He spoke out against slavery. Although he came late to the abolitionist cause, he ended up being a powerful voice for human freedom. However, his life was not without more pain. The death of his first son, Waldo, at the age of 5, shook him to his core. He wrote a heartbreaking poem titled Threnody. Even the great philosopher of optimism had to wrestle with the darkness. This suffering gave a new depth to his thought. His optimism ceased to be naive and became a hard-won resilience. He understood that fate is sometimes cruel, but that the human mind has the capacity to transcend even grief. As he aged, Emerson worried that his ideas were being misinterpreted. He saw how individualism could be twisted into the rapacious materialism that was beginning to dominate the United States. He advocated for the self-sufficiency of the soul, not the pocketbook. It is important to distinguish this. The self-made man of modern capitalism seeks to accumulate wealth. Emerson's self-reliant man seeks to accumulate character, truth, and a connection with the cosmos. They are two very different currencies. Emerson's legacy is immense. He influenced Nietzsche, who called him a spiritual brother. He influenced pragmatists like William James. And of course, he is the intellectual grandfather of the modern environmental movement. Today, in our digital age, his words resonate with a new urgency. We live in a constant echo chamber. Social media rewards us for conforming, for using the same filters, for having the same opinions as our tribe. Emerson screams to us from the 19th century, "Stop! Turn off the noise. Go to the woods, or at least go to the silence of your own room. Ask yourself what you truly think, not what your newsfeed thinks. Reclaim your mental sovereignty. Nature," he reminds us, "is the antidote to artificiality. We don't need to go to Yosemite to find it. It's in the corner park, in the sky above the city, in the plant you water on your windowsill. It is a reminder of real rhythms." And regarding trust, how many projects have you not started for fear of what people will say? How many times have you silenced your opinion so as not to cause discomfort? Emerson tells us that discomfort is the price of integrity. Don't be afraid to be yourself. He teaches us that each of us has a unique vocation, not necessarily a job, but a unique way of seeing and being in the world. To deny that is to deny the gift that life has given you. Your life is your work of art. Of course, it's hard. The pressure to conform is titanic. But Emerson assures us that great souls are always those who dare to break the mold. History does not remember those who went with the flow. It remembers those who changed it. So the next time you feel lost, remember the transparent eyeball. Remember that you are part of the whole. That your intuition is worth as much as that of any expert. That nature is waiting to renew your spirit. Ralph Waldo Emerson didn't give us a rigid philosophical system. He gave us an attitude, a posture toward life, an invitation to live from the inside out and not the other way around. He gave us permission to trust. His essays are difficult, dense, and sometimes contradictory, but they are worth the effort. They are like walking a mountain trail. It's tiring, but the view from the top changes your perspective forever. I hope this journey through Emerson's thought has lit a spark in you. Don't stop with this video. Read Nature, read Self-Reliance. Let his words challenge you. Imagine for a second a world where everyone acted with that radical authenticity, where the fear of others' judgment disappeared. It would be a chaotic world perhaps, but vibrant, honest, and deeply human. That is the transcendentalist dream. Let's remember his warning about books. Books are for the scholar's idle times. When we can read God directly in nature or in our minds, books are redundant. Use them to inspire you, not to enslave you. Emerson believed in the infinite potential of the human being. In you, he said, there is a sleeping man who is a giant. Wake him up. Don't let the trivialities of day-to-day life numb that latent greatness. Life is an experiment. The more experiments you make, the better. Don't be afraid to fail. Failure is just information. The true tragedy is not having tried to live your own truth for fear of being wrong. In the end, what remains of Emerson is that quiet but firm voice telling us, you are enough. You don't need titles or riches or the approval of the crowd to be valuable. Your existence is already a divine miracle. In the silence of the conquered woods, he found his answer. And he left us the map so that we might find ours. Not in his woods, but in ours. Not in his time, but in this one. Right now. Philosophy is useless if it stays on paper. It has to be lived. It has to be breathed. It has to be sweated. Emerson didn't want readers. He wanted active, thinking, and free men and women. So I leave you with this challenge. Tomorrow, when you feel the pressure to conform, to say yes when you want to say no, remember Emerson. Take a small pause and choose, even if only for a moment, to trust yourself. Because as he said, nothing is at last sacred but the integrity of your own mind. Protect that integrity, nourish it, and you will see how the world begins to change around you, or at least your way of seeing the world. Thank you for joining me on this journey through the life and work of Ralph Waldo Emerson. It has been a pleasure unpacking these ideas with you. The history of thought is vast, and we have barely scratched the surface. If this video made you think, if it gave you a new mental tool, then we have fulfilled our mission. Curiosity is the engine that drives us, and you are the fuel. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel. Here we dedicate ourselves to rescuing the great ideas of the past to illuminate our present. Give it a like if you enjoyed the journey, and share this video with someone who needs to hear this message. Leave me a comment about which phrase or idea from Emerson resonated with you most. Do you find it hard to trust your intuition? Do you feel connected to nature? I want to read your thoughts and continue the conversation down there. I am your host on this adventure of knowledge. Remember, education is a lifelong journey, and it's never too late to start thinking for yourself. See you in the next analysis. Until then, keep your eyes open, your mind awake, and your spirit free. Goodbye. But wait, there's one more detail. Emerson also spoke about friendship. He said that a friend is a person with whom one can be sincere. Value those friends who allow you to think out loud. Solitude is necessary for reflection, but community is necessary for growth. Don't isolate yourself in your ivory tower. Go down to the marketplace, talk, debate, live. The balance between solitude and society is the art of living. Emerson knew this. He spent hours in his study, but he always went out to dinner with his family and walked with his neighbors. His house in Concord, known as Bush, always had its doors open. Pilgrims from all over the world went to visit him. He received them with courtesy, always seeking the divine spark in every visitor. That is true intellectual hospitality. Not imposing your ideas, but creating a space where others' ideas can flourish. To be a host of thought. And speaking of flourishing, let's remember his love for gardening. Emerson planted pear and apple trees. He knew that ideas, like trees, take time to bear fruit. Patience. In a world of immediacy, of instant gratification, patience is an act of rebellion. Give yourself time to understand who you are. You don't have to have it all figured out today. Life is not a sprint, it's an exploration. And like every explorer, sometimes you will get lost. That is part of the map. Emerson lost himself many times before finding himself. Even in his final years, when his memory failed him and dementia clouded his mind, he maintained his dignity and his smile. He knew that his essence was beyond his physical brain. He died in 1882. But as we said at the beginning, his fire did not go out. It passed to Whitman, to Frost, to the Beatniks, and now to us. We are the heirs of that flame. We have the responsibility not to let it die, to keep asking, to keep searching, to keep trusting. So take that flame, use it to light your own dark corners. To question what they tell you is impossible. To create your own path. Remember the phrase, adopt the pace of nature. Her secret is patience. Take a deep breath, look at the sky, and trust. Thank you once again. Your time is the most valuable resource you have, and I appreciate that you shared it with me. This is a learning community, and you are the vital part. See you very soon with another great thinker. Perhaps Nietzsche, perhaps Plato, perhaps someone you don't know yet. The adventure continues. Subscribe, hit the bell, and share. Help us get the algorithm to favor critical thinking. Until next time.